Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about episode 2 of the first season of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Lived, and it was called Gone. The episode begins with a walker catching fire and then informs us that it's 6 years after the bridge explosion. Michonne is telling a woman she just found out that Rick is alive and that she needs a horse to go find him. Apparently, she saved this woman's sister and the sister's boyfriend, but the woman wants Michonne to stay in the community she landed in, that these people were from, because the woman thinks she could be an asset. She also wants her to stay at least for a time because of a 5-mile wide migration of tons of walkers, whom they call whalers, will be walking through or coming through the area that she intends to go to. Michonne's not having any of this and she starts to leave, but a very irritated man named Nat comes in and talks to the same woman about how he's fed up and he's going to leave because he doesn't know that the sister was in fact saved, despite the fact that the woman didn't actually send anyone to save her. But he turns around to see her there and is very happy, and he sees to it that Michonne gets a horse for being the one who saved the sister on her own. They're also happy, in fact, that overnight they make Michonne some armor, and they do, in fact, give her a horse, which was one of the woman's horses. Michonne then heads off, and as she starts out, she tries to raise Judith on the walkie because she's been communicating with Judith over the walkie at different times. When next we see Michonne, she's riding past a walker on a horse in full leather armor, including a helmet, with her katana, slicing the head off of a walker before coming upon this huge migration, which is enormous and which stretches beyond where the eye can see. We then see that her friends also gave her a mini rocket launcher, which she fires off, turning part of the horde away from her direction. She then sees the walker on fire from the beginning of the episode, who'd been wearing a bunch of gas cans, and before she can do anything, he explodes and his head lands near her as she's knocked off her horse, turning the walkers back in that direction towards her. Next, 2 explosions go off on different sides of the horde, turning half of the horde one way and half the other way, creating a path for her like Moses parting the Red Sea. It turns out that her friends came up behind her with some others to help her out. They say they're going to sit and wait for the 2 halves of the horde to clear an even wider path in the middle, so they can all go through as well, and they ask her to wait with them. At a campfire, her new friends thank her for waking them up about how crazy things were in their community, where the woman running it never went after anybody who got lost or whatever. It turns out that the woman's sister that Michonne saved is pregnant. She tells Michonne how they came to be in need of her help, and she breaks down because it was scary. Michonne tells her that she and her boyfriend should turn back so that she can get back to her community and have her baby safely, but the woman says she doesn't want to do that. She wants to help Michonne find Rick. As they're walking on in daylight, Nat explains to Michonne how he grew up in a troubled kid who liked to burn things, but then when his mother married a man she met, the man became a source of encouragement for him, and it helped him learn how to also build things in addition to being, how to burn things. Then out of nowhere, their little caravan is attacked from a helicopter with what seemed to be some type of noxious gas. It seemed to immediately kill some of the people, and they turn. It makes others very sick, including Michonne, Natty, the sister, and the boyfriend. With her seeming dying breath, the sister tells Michonne to press on and find Rick and her babies. And so she goes looking in the building or area that they're in for oxygen tanks to help her, Natty, and the boyfriend breathe because they're having trouble doing that after inhaling the gas. She comes back to find the girlfriend tied to the bed and turned, so she takes her out. She also finds the boyfriend turned and she takes him out. She finds Nat still alive behind a barricade lit on fire, saying that he couldn't kill the guy and he's glad she did. He also urges Michonne just to go back to Alexandria because it must be too late for her to actually find Rick, but she says no. He and Michonne then put on oxygen masks so they can breathe, and Nat explains that he thinks it was chlorine gas because he read about it as a kid and used to dream about dropping it on the football team at his high school. They continue breathing from the oxygen tanks over a period of time and try to build up their strength and lung capacity. Eventually, Michonne gives Nat a map to Alexandria saying that he should go there, as she goes on to find Rick. And he says no, that he's not doing that because she's all he has now and he's going with her. So they head out on foot in the morning while a jawless, handless walker pulls their cart behind them as it's tied to his waist, which is something Michonne used to do before. They soon come upon a beached cruise ship that has a sign hanging on it saying Safe Harbor. But the area is littered with piles of burnt bodies. None of the bodies have shoes, and since it's where Michonne found Rick's shoes a while back, Nat thinks he must be one of the burnt bodies. He says again that she should go home, but still believe for a little while longer that Rick is still out there, like the Japanese script written on her dead phone says. And she breaks down and cries, saying that it's been in front of her the whole time, and she seems to decide, in fact, to go back to Alexandria to give up looking. The next day, they set out, seemingly towards Alexandria. And apparently, they spent a bunch of time holed up in that building before this, the one they went into after the gas attack. And now it's the day that they come upon Rick's helicopter that we saw at the end of the previous episode. Nate launches rockets at the helicopter, bringing it down, which we already saw from inside the helicopter before. As Rick's buddies pile out of the helicopter, Michonne and Nate continue their attack on them, and after straight up slicing the necks of several of Rick's friends on the ground, Michonne finds Rick, as we saw at the end of last week's episode. He tells her they won't be able to get away because the others are coming, and he tells her to hide the fact that she's an alpha so she won't be killed. And when Nat comes over, he gets shot from behind by one of the helicopter soldiers who it seems didn't actually die in the crash, and Michonne, I guess, didn't get a chance to kill him. He dies, advising Michonne to be sure that Rick is still Rick, and that if things seem hinky, she needs to know when to go, which echoes things they talked about in the past about how he and his friends at different points knew it was time to leave their community, but didn't when they should have. When Rick's people show up, he has to fake holding Michonne at gunpoint, and he tells her to come up with a story so they won't suspect that they know each other, as well as that they will be separated, but that he'll find her. So she tells the people that her name is Dana and that she's been out in the wilderness a long time after having been in Georgia with her boyfriend. She says she knew it was time to leave when her leaders changed, and so she did. And when they ask her how she feels about the fact that they won't ever let her leave because of secrecy, she says it's fine because it's what she's been looking for and what she's been believing in just a little longer. So that keeps coming up. Then Rick picks her up under the guise of escorting her somewhere, and they sneak off and make out and talk before making out some more. He gives her Nat's lighter that he must have gotten off his body. Rick then goes off somewhere while Michonne climbs to the top of a storage container and looks out at the massive military compound. She sees multiple Chinook helicopters and a whole ton of trucks. As she flips Nat's father figure's lighter open and closed, lighting it and dousing it just as he would do. Rick returns to his apartment to find Jadis there. It turns out she was monitoring Michonne's meeting with the leaders, and she came to tell Rick that she knows, but that she isn't filing paperwork because they've had a long-standing deal. But she warns him that the deal doesn't cover the new developments, and that if he tries to escape with her, she's going to kill his friends wherever he ends up running to, even though she likes a lot of them. She then asks him what the fuck he's doing. And that's where the episode ended. So I was right. They spent most of this episode, except for the last few minutes, depicting what happened to Michonne across all those years. And apparently it wasn't as much in terms of events as what happened to Rick during his years. She kind of just spent a whole bunch of time holed up in that building, getting healthy after the gas attack, which, okay, I guess I can believe that. So we didn't get a whole lot of pickup after where last episode left off, just as I knew was going to happen. But we did get some at the end, which was a surprise. I didn't think we were going to get any at all. And so we know now that Michonne and Rick are together, as it were, in the same, place, but they can't be together because Rick knows that if they figure out who she is, they'll know that she's an alpha and they'll send her away to die because they don't want alphas in the city because they're afraid of them. So she has to pretend not to know him and so forth. And so I guess that's what they're going to be doing with the rest of the 6 episodes that are left. They're going to be showing how the two of them survive in this community while being apart still, but trying to get back together and trying to escape together. So I guess that's cool. I thought that he would just run with her from where they met, but that's not what they're doing. So we're going to get to see them kind of try to survive this community, which makes sense. I couldn't think of what else they were going to do. And I guess that's what they have to do. They have to go back to that community. But there's, of course, a fly in the ointment because Jadis knows that Michonne's Michonne and she's going to be a foil for Rick and she's out of her mind. So this is going to be a crazy ride, I think. I did really like this episode because, I did want to know what Michonne was up to, and that's fine. We get to figure that out. But I liked the relationships that she started to build with these people. And it seemed too good to be true. I should have known they were all going to die, but I didn't. Even when the first two died, I thought, okay, Nat's going to make it, but he didn't. And that was the worst of all. I thought he was a very cool character. The actor, Matthew Jeffers, was excellent. So I really wanted that character to continue for a while. I really liked him, but nope, they killed him. That really sucks. But I think they all made an impact on Michonne. I think Nat made the most impact on Michonne. She's got his lighter now, and she flips it because she's remembering him, and he had an influence on her. So it's sort of manifesting in this lighter flip now that she has his lighter. There were recurring themes throughout the episode: believing a little bit longer, as well as knowing when to leave. There were two sort of ideas that get repeated throughout the episode at different points, and I thought that was cool. And once again, with the fire in this episode, like I said last week, fire was a big sort of part of it. It kept coming up, and it came up multiple times in this episode. The episode starts with us seeing a walker with oil cans on him, or gas cans, and he's on fire. And then he shows up again and explodes. We get to hear how Nate was a pyromaniac when he was a kid, and we get to see him constantly flipping the lighter, which gets passed on to Michonne after he dies, and she ends up starting to do the flip thing. So fire again was a big thing, and I'm wondering if it's going to continue. I have a feeling they're going to continue involving fire and burning in the episodes. That'll be interesting, I think, to see whether or not I'm right about that. But I really liked the episode. I thought, like I said, Matthew Jeffers was excellent. It was great to see Michonne back in true form, as opposed to the fantasy version we saw before. The horde moments were crazy. The cruise ship thing was crazy, and it was just a really good episode. And I'm not surprised, because last week was. I have been surprised, as I said, that these shows are good, because the last few seasons of the original show kind of stunk, but they've really figured out how to tell these stories again, it seems, with these new shows, and I'm liking them, where I really didn't think I would, except for the Negan and Maggie one. But I'm really liking this show, and I can't wait for next week. I really want to see what they're going to do next, what Jadis is going to do, and all of that. But I'm going to get out of here for now. I'll be back to do a recap and review of next week's episode once it airs. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.